Okay.
Ready to go?
Are we on, Tony? Good.
Perfect.
We can edit. Phil, thanks for sitting down a few minutes.
Yeah, sure.
It's a delightful treat to run into you here.
Yeah.
We interacted in early days at BOSCO,
Yeah.
but there were some things we didn't know. We had some interesting experiences here catching up. Thought I'd ask you a little bit about your experience with how BOSCO began. You were here almost from day one, right?
Yeah.
From 2007. Maybe you could describe how it is you came to come here, what it is you saw when you did.
Yeah, it was in 2007 when I came here. If I recall correctly, it was in May or June, something around this time. Just when the rainy season starts here, as we hear in the background now. Yeah, still raining a lot. Will play another role in one of my anecdotes later. So basically, when I came here, it was still the phase when the technicians that did the initial deployment, the guys from Ingenio, we certainly remember them, so they had just completed the first deployment, which did cover by then 9 camps, and a lot of things were different at that time, obviously. I was hired as a technician in the first place because the most challenging thing in the beginning was actually to maintain the system that had just been freshly installed. And as far as I recall, it was also for Ingenio. It was kind of a pilot project. They did not have experience in a tropical country then. So when I came here, basically I had 2 weeks of training with Mark Sommer from Ingenio. So those were quite intense 2 weeks, because the rain season, as mentioned, had already started, and so the installation was done during the dry season. Dry season has its challenges, but definitely the rain season has more challenges, especially for the type of equipment that we used. And so we went around, we saw all sites. He introduced me to all the people that were involved for that initial deployment. And he also introduced me to the mostly with technical background, like how to maintain our routers, how to troubleshoot, how to solve simple problems. So as mentioned, there were 2 very intense weeks with him.
You had, by that time, you were building on a bit of a technical background yourself at CMS at CERN.
That's true. That was the big advantage that we had. I did have quite a good technical background, not so much in the networking field and IP networks, but however, that was not too difficult to get. And also, like these rather small-sized solar systems that we used by then were also quite straightforward. It was not too much like at least the theory. Of course, the details, like the small details, those were the ones who gave us some headaches, especially in the beginning. But I would like to go one step back also to the initial deployment, because the project, I just saw it in this layout, has grown enormously. Back then, we used to start with only 9 camps, as we mentioned. So this was by then Babo, one of the biggest camps by then, housing like 90,000 people. And there was Chingari, there was Barak, there was Lachor, there was Unyaman, and we had a few stations at Caritas, the Bishop's Place, and of course the CTC as the headquarters.
Yeah, you're going to go on in that story, but if you could situate us for a moment. You use the word camps.
Right.
We are in the rainy season. Camps, how far were we from the end of the insurgency, and what was the climate at the time?
That's, I think, also a very, very important thing to shed light onto, because the initial idea or the initial goal of BOSCO was for this emergency situation. When gas came here, I think it was in 2004, I think, when there was this killing at Atiak, where the people just were not able to communicate outside, because they were isolated. by that time in 2004, there was no mobile network here. Yeah? There was no way of communicating other than those, how do you call them, radios. Yeah? But of course the rebels would very quickly identify the radio station because it has a huge antenna, and yeah, it's gone, and then that's it with the communication. And so I think that was also Gus's, or not Gus's, I think it was Gus's idea, or
So,
also BOSCO's initial idea to allow communication for the refugee camps in northern Uganda, so that such terrible things wouldn't happen anymore. So then the installation of the system started in 2006 and was finished in spring 2007. And in 2007, it was also when the Juba peace talks, yeah, I mean, they didn't succeed in the end, unfortunately, but however, just when I came, the situation had really improved. Yeah? Of course, the people were still really scared if this would, there have been always ups and downs in the political situation, and like first people thought it's an up again and let's not be too optimistic because it can become worse again. But eventually it turned out that this was really, 2007 was the year where things really started to improve. So which meant there was no need for emergency calls, yeah? Which was previously the main purpose of BOSCO, yeah? Just to have that. And then, secondly, as soon as peace came in, there was a huge fund by this time by the, I don't remember if it was the World Currency Fund or the World Bank. However, there was a huge fund called the Rural Development Communication Fund.
Yeah.
We also applied for that one by then. Unfortunately, we didn't make it. But a lot of these mobile operators, which were also kind of doing mobile communication, you can say,
Yeah.
a lot of the towers that were built around that time from this, what do you say, mobile network operators like MTN by then and UGL, telecoms, yeah. So their infrastructure was built with those funds, and within few months, everyone had, not everyone, but a lot of people did have cell phones and did have means of communication, which was, like, let's say, which also made this kind of approach that we had in the beginning. We had to adjust to that. Yeah. So we already figured that very early that these IP phones that we had installed, that they were not used that often. Yeah, at least not for emergency calls, because there was luckily no emergency. And other than if there was an emergency, I think the cell phone would have been the quicker way, because they were mobile and they were all around.
Yeah.
So this was the situation, and coming back to the camps again, as you said, people were still living in camps by then. Yeah? Of course, the situation had improved, and there was no more need. But as mentioned, people still lived in these internally displaced people camps. Yeah? Basically, the camps that were guarded by the UPDF, by the government soldiers, more or less successful sometimes, and so the people still stayed in these very congested places. Yeah? If you go to the field now, luckily the situation has improved, and I would think like everyone who has had the chance or has had the land to go back has gone to the original homes, and people are doing a lot of farming. But back in the days, the situation was, even if the rebels were not attacking, the situation of having 90% of the population here in the north staying in very congested places was also really very hard. It was a very hard situation for the people, because those places, of course, had bad hygienic conditions. They had bad, the access to water was bad. Yeah. People were still mostly fed by the World Food Program, because they didn't start planting their crops yet. And of course, violence was always a big problem in those camps, because there were so many, so many people and young people, nothing to do, because like the things you would, or hardly anything to do, because most of the population would rely on agriculture then.
Yeah, Philip, do you have a favorite story from those very early days, deployment days?
There are a few actually. Yeah, there are a few stories which really, just things that happen that you don't expect. Yeah, and that really happened also because of the weather conditions. Happened because of, like let me just tell the story. It's pretty interesting. Yeah. So in one of these sites, I'm not saying which one now, but in one of these sites, the initial deployment was usually always a computer and an IP phone. So the computer was one of these low-power PCs that would just consume around 10 watts, and a very, very low-energy flat screen. And that was the installation. Yeah? The solar system big enough to power the same thing. What we didn't think of was that in some of these places, the screen, and we hadn't done computer training in the beginning, because first we rushed into deploying and maintaining the system rather than educating people, and also the manpower by then was not too big, so the resources were quite limited. So
you and a couple other people were the BOSCO staff.
Yeah, right, exactly, And so we hadn't yet started our training, at least not really intensely. I think everyone got a brief introduction, but like if you're not familiar with computers in general, it takes a while until you can really benefit from it. And so we had one of these places where we also found out that it was the only light source. So that computer was on every day, regularly, but not as a computer, but it was a light. It was just the only source of light. And so then we figured out, okay, if we let's not go too sophisticated. Let's just put a bulb everywhere. That was the first extension. What we did.
So it's worth noting, even from the beginning, it wasn't only ICT infrastructure that was in some ways leapfrogged in, to a place that didn't have it, but even electrification.
Yeah, it was electrification. So of course, it's very obvious. When you think back, how can you miss a bulb? It's obviously more important than the internet. A source of light in the night for eating, for just sitting together.
Yes.
But we obviously missed that at the beginning, and that's one of the many things I think also was one of the first things we learned. That approach that we had was first of all it was kind of rushed into because we wanted to do it quickly,
quickly because of the Ulysses fire,
exactly.
Which ended up holding indefinitely to this day.
That was the good thing, but so these things happened, and this was only one of the many learnings I think that we had throughout the years that came.
Right. Wow, fascinating. So there was a learning curve that was climbed slowly by BOSCO during these days.
That's true. The learning curve was you can say it was in two dimensions. One, or at least two dimensions. One that I see was the technical one. We also figured out that our equipment was maybe not fully ready for the weather conditions and for the environmental conditions in general. So we had a lot of, like, how to say, thunderstroke, lightning strikes. So it destroyed a lot of equipment. That was really painful, because that equipment costs. And
the theory was that there were lightning arresters in place.
There were lightning arresters in place. But the problem was that you need to ground them properly, and eventually we found some green and yellow cables, and we said, okay, that's our grounding now, so let's just hook it up there. But a grounding is only good as has a lot of factors, as it has to be the soil if it's very dry. So like after a long period of drought, the lightning is worth nothing because it doesn't just conduct the current, and so they didn't work properly. So we had to painfully figure that out. we also found out that the dry season is such a long period of no rain. Yeah? Our solar panels were just had a thick layer of dust, yeah? And so that was also, we had to of course clean the panels regularly, because they would be covered in a lot of dust, and as soon as you have like only just a very thin layer, the power that they would generate would just diminish immediately. That would kill the batteries in the long run, and stuff like that. Yeah.
Was the equipment preserved on the whole during this time? You talked about one way in which it wasn't, right? Which was lightning strikes.
Yeah, lightning.
In general, that raises the question, right? Did equipment disappear, for example? Did people take it? What was your experience in those days?
We had also some of these cases where equipment did disappear or was at least misused. Yeah? So sometimes we had people that were responsible for, or that we said like they should be taking care of the equipment, and they would just every day in the evening take the battery with them and just hook up their radios. Yeah? Stuff like that. I mean, not a big surprise, because if that thing is the only source of electricity, it becomes very, very valuable. Yeah? We also had, fortunately, very few cases where solar panels, because like that's the most expensive part of our equipment, disappeared. I think it was one or two during the time I was here. Were just stolen. Yeah? I mean, usually we found quite good places to put them, like water towers, and the water towers are usually guarded. But however, also those places disappeared, and of course, like we were not always out in the field. We just saw it. We just always figured it a little late that the equipment had disappeared when the power went out and didn't come back online. So of course, this was also quite a painful experience, but it's to be expected. If you put something very valuable in a region where place.
When did ICT training begin? Were you around during those days? What was it like?
So basically with the training, I started quite early. I just, whenever I found time, or whenever I went to a place where I would maintain equipment, I mean in the beginning, of course, as mentioned, because the rainy season, like my main duty was to keep the thing up and running, which was, took maybe like 70% of my time. But whenever I went to a site, I was anyway, like it's the culture anyway, I wouldn't just go there and like just fix the thing. I would just sit down for tea or coffee or whatever was there, and also just get to know the people, and eventually also take some hour or two, depending on the time which I had to commute back, to do some basic education. But this was in the beginning only with single people, and it was not like really planned. It was just like whatever people wanted to know, and just told them, okay, we can do this and this. So this was the first steps of education, but not yet with a clear concept behind it. And then in the dry season, when things became a bit more stable and the rain was not disturbing us that much, that was in maybe January 2008, around that time, we really started more thinking about what can we do, what can be the first things, and that we can teach people and that we can show people, and of course what is also feasible with the bandwidth we have available, because that was another detail. In the beginning we had like 256K down, and this was shared across so many PCs. Of course, by then also the Caritas office was, of course they also were one of the biggest contributors to our bill, our internet bill, but of course also one of the bigger consumers, because they had like 20 or so PCs hooked up, more or less, depending on there, because there was an access point there and people had laptops, and there was a lot of Caritas was really, really big by that time, because they were so active also in facilitating the peace talks and all these things. So basically, the first things we did, and I remember that was we also tried to show people, just give them an idea about the internet in general. Eventually, I figured out that this is a very abstract concept, and I tried to make it more concrete, and we opened email addresses. And I would write emails to, you know, just every day sit and just write some emails to everyone which we had opened email addresses to. Yeah. And I also got emails back from them.
Sure,
and
priming the pump, so to speak, right?
Exactly.
Communication.
Yeah, and so to give people an idea, like what it was like, to write electronic mails, that come very quickly and they can converse quite, in a fast manner. So this is that was one of the first things we did, just opening email addresses. And then eventually I figured, we don't. Typing is the next thing, because like it takes long and you need to write an email. So I said like, okay, like let's try that one. Let's try to teach people typing. And
did people pick it up if you didn't teach them?
What?
Did you have some people pick up?
Yeah.
Hunt and peck,
of course. You know, that was the nice experience that came then. Because of course in the beginning I just tried to show things what I thought would be useful, like writing emails, Wikipedia, and so on. But I also got then after some time, it was I just received an invite to one of these. I don't know. It was not Facebook by then. It was one of these early social networks. I received an invite from a guy I had opened an email address to, and I said, "Wow, that's cool. He has figured it already." And that in some places it went very, very well. There were people that were really, they had some background already, some of them, so they would really, they could really benefit from it. And so one of the camps or the places where this was really went well in the early days was Badak. I had really two very good guys, Christopher and Simon. Those guys were really good and the first ones to really be very active, and they also. We asked them to carry on their knowledge, and to educate people there.
That was an instance of one of the early partnerships that we formed in Badak.
Yeah, right. That's true.
Who was it that we had an ICT center that was built there?
Yeah, correct. Yeah. That was some time later already, but Badak used to be the.
Okay, a little bit later was War Child Holland, but even before then, Simon and Christopher.
Simon and Christopher were from the first days, and they were very active, and also
Joe Condino.
Joe Condino, yes. Those are the names,
Yes.
And they were just very active.
Well, you know how I know them so well. It's because you remember in the early days we had not only voice over IP locally. But we had an Indiana 574 address, right? So it was a local call to Indiana. So guys could pick up the phone and call me, and which happened not infrequently. So I had a lot of chats with Simon, Christopher, and Joe Condino.
Those guys were really the first ones to really drive the, and then really also to give us, or at least for me, give us a really positive feeling of how useful this thing was. Because of course, like in these days. And I have been working with an Austrian NGO, and we had conversations always, like these reflection meetings, and where you would, where questions would be brought up. So you have an ICT camp there with malnourished children, with a very high rate of violence, and with so many problems. And you think internet is the most important thing to have there? Don't you think people have other problems there? And
water,
whatever. Like a lot of these questions came up, and like ICT equipment is expensive. You can buy a lot of beans for a PC. And
what'd you tell them?
I was in the beginning. I didn't tell them much. I said, you might be right. you might be right. Maybe we are not doing the right thing. And I also had my my days where I was really not convinced we are doing the right thing. Especially remember, but this had another reason. One day I had, not one day, but it was not only one day, but it was once I had malaria, and the anti-malaria treatment which I used had strong side effects. And And also one of these side effects would be it makes people depressive. Usually I'm not the depressive kind of guy, and I knew it was I was taking these drugs and they would have some effect on my brain, or on my psyche. And however, it was a difficult time also for BOSCO by then, so we had a lot of trouble, like all these questions that I asked myself, and also by that time money was a problem, because the initial deployment cost a ton of money, and after that it was, it was not so easy to get the money, and I was a technical consultant for Horizon, but I didn't have a budget. Like I didn't have a Horizon budget. The contract between
activities budget.
Yeah,
they just
exactly.
you,
it was just myself. So basically, I didn't even get money for airtime. So like for phone calls and that stuff, I couldn't even buy small things. So it was mostly by then it was Father Joe who gave me airtime, who gave me fuel for the motorbike, and he gave me the motorbike in the first place. Also, always had an open ear, of course, when I had like these problems, and this malaria medication made me really depressive. And I remember I was sitting back there in this room, in my room, and I was still very ill, and I was very depressed. And I was you never got this email, but I was about, and I think I had started it already. It was really a an email where, like, I think it was to you and to Gus and Ted and Father Joe and I don't know who else. It was like really saying, like, guys, we are not doing the right thing. There is no point. Let's just be honest with each other. Like there is no point in continuing. I'm really fed up with that. so when
for sharing the email. At least a little later.
So when the medication when I wore off, I was also in a better mood again, and so apparently this helped. But coming back to your questions, what I told people, and what, like also ICT versus clean water. Where's the point? And I think there is no, like the question, the answer is very easy. You will always catch up quicker if you do it, if you go multiple ways at once. So I mean, there were people organizations in the camps that did take care of clean water. So there is no point to serialize everything if you can do it in parallel.
Spoken like a
easy
programmer.
So easy answer to that is like, in order to really catch up with the time that basically people and especially young people lost during the time in the camps, where they did of course have none of these things like clean water, good feeding, and no internet, no difficult access to education. So make it as parallel as possible, do many things at once, even if it's not the most obvious thing, but if you think a little technical, it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense.
When did days get a little bit brighter from a funding point of view? What were the first signs of some hope, some progress that you begin to see?
So basically this was, so I work for Horizon 3000, this Austrian NGO, and we currently have no one on in Gulu from Horizon, but I understand there is some discussion going on and they are just recruiting someone now. So basically,
not worth mentioning that nodding disease. That relationship which has been long term, right? It's really, they've been with us really since the beginning.
Right.
And that's really worth pointing out. But nodding disease in small children don't mix well. Right?
That's true.
And the last technical consultant to that capacity. A small child.
And Peter, I mean, that was also like the first time when we financially could relax a bit was basically when Stefan came in, Stefan Bock. He was another Horizon 3000 development worker, so he basically took over from me. So we had, I think, like a 2 months handover period. Good thing was he at least had a car that was sponsored from Horizon, so that's already was a big thing. It was like a big relief for us, because I didn't have to carry all my tools in my backpack and the antenna standing out like this on my motorbike.
I'm glad you painted that picture. That's a great
Yeah,
picture.
yeah. So I mean, it was hard. It was hard by then. And with the motorbike, you're just so much more. Yeah, you can't cover those huge distances, and you eat dust all the time. So having a car was already really a big thing for us, and we were way more active by then. And also Stefan, the good thing, he had a different background also. Like he has also had some. While I was more like a technical consultant, and let's say at this point maybe this was the right thing. Like Stefan also had both sides. He had also kind of a technical background from his earlier professional career, but he had also some, let's say, some development study background, and he also was able to form some connections and relate BOSCO and with other with other NGOs. Like War Child Holland was one of the first ones in Bagak, yeah. And basically he saw also how we could make use of our expertise that we had gained over the past years of, you know, like using like our computer expertise, low power computers, solar powered computers, Wi-Fi, yeah, hooking stuff up to shared internet, using the intranet, like that had good bandwidths, and all these things, kind of relating them to projects other NGOs were already doing with, for example, children in a school in Bagak. Yeah? So these partnerships gave us also kind of a financial relief, because those NGOs could have also budgets, you know, at least for basic things. Yeah? In the beginning, we didn't need that much money, and they would just they would put their project with their PCs, but still they would kind of pay us, or at least you know, like compensate us for, you know, the petrol for basic things. And
Sure.
it was all money, and
Maybe network.
yeah, and they can contribute to the right. So and then Stefan then also carried on, I think, and he was also the one to form, or he was involved, I guess, in the first connections to UNICEF.
Where he now works.
Yeah, where he now works. Yeah, and so I think this was the time around 2008, 2009, where these things really started to brighten up a bit. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Very good. You've moved from Horizon 3000, from BOSCO, on to other things.
Yeah. Right.
What are you doing now?
I work as an IT consultant still, you can say. Yeah. I work now for Accenture. Like, we all know that company. We know since yesterday that we know that company both quite well. Yeah.
Right.
So I'm after I spent, I started with them in January 2010.
Okay.
Yeah. Around that time. No, I was in fall 2009. Anyways, yeah. So I'm still doing IT consulting, but it's on a different level. Yeah, it's just doing it now for big companies and finding IT solutions for those companies. Yeah.
Right. What do you see looking back now when you come by? You've come by several times, right? At least two that I know of, and I think it
was four times.
Four times, yeah.
Yeah.
What strikes you as different about BOSCO as an organization now, looking at it from your growth? You've been actually in a couple of really different organizations, right? Particle physics community is one I know.
Science.
And Accenture's one I'm getting to know. That you know much better. So when you come back, what do you see happening in BOSCO as an organization? Yeah, I mean, the organization, I mean, I have to admit, I was not so involved since 2009 that I followed every little step, but I would just still be getting some mails every now and then. I have quite good contact with Father Joe, so I get some updates from his side, eventually I would see the proceedings online, and I think a lot of things have changed, and what I also really like is that BOSCO, I think, has been a very flexible, flexible organization. Yeah, they have adopted, and they had to adopt also to the circumstances. Yeah, because as we said, we had this in the early days. Yeah, we thought we would be doing emergency relief, you can say, in one way.
So the emergency was not there, so we did that. Yeah, and now you see like the internet is something. You know, if you go around with your mobile phone, you see 3G is. I mean, it's still pretty expensive, so it's not. I wouldn't call it affordable yet. But if you just go down to Rwanda, it's very cheap there, and I think also here it will become more and more affordable. Yeah, more. After the telcos hook themselves up to the big fiber lines and with their infrastructure, the cheaper it will be. And so I think also BOSCO has identified that point, yeah, that it's not only about internet and communication, yeah, but what do we have? Yeah, and we have solar panels, yeah, we have batteries, we have basically electricity, and we have an excess of sun sometimes. And and I like that BOSCO has been always changing its goals. Yeah, it's like a very, very dynamic process, as I see. And what I have also seen here, of course, the size of BOSCO is enormous now. Yeah, just like whenever I came back to this office, I mean, in the beginning there was not this office. Yeah, there was this veranda or wherever. I used to work my room for the Joe's office down there. So like every time I would come back there, more equipment would pile up, and then new things would appear, new faces would appear, and I was very impressed by that as well. Yeah, by the pure growth like of the organization. Whereas of course I don't want to overemphasize this. This is not the most important thing. Yeah,
sure.
I think the most important thing is like to not only grow too fast and make the things and keep your focus on certain points, and as far as I can tell, this is also happening. And I really like the idea, and that's why I'm also going to be involved in this new program, the EC3 program. CE3, sorry, the other way.
We get confused too.
Yeah.
Connection for electrification, entrepreneurial activity, education. Those are the three E's. You can put them in any way you want, but there's one right way to put them.
One C and three E's definitely. So I think that's a very, very that's a very good approach, and I really like that. I'm really enjoying to get involved in that one as well. And with other colleagues of my current company, which will be really awesome. Yeah.
Very nice, very nice. But what do you see the same as you look back? I asked you how's things different.
Which things changed? Which things are the same? Definitely we have some people that are still the same. So that is mostly you, Gus, and Father Joe. That's what I would say. Like I think over the time.
You overlapped with Alfred Colombo, or not quite?
Alfred, that's another thing. Yeah, Alfred was not one of the first.
Right? Yeah.
Basically, he was. I did recommend. Basically, Alfred by then was working in Caritas, and I said I already told Father because I was a lot in the Caritas offices because there was also the communications office there which we used. But I always had. So I met Alfred there, and he was working for some kind of seeds or something project which I don't remember. But anyways, so he was. But I always found when I was working there that he has the right personality to really pick up very quickly and the technical background.
Remember your recommendation.
And I told Father Joe, I know he has a job there, but if he happens to not have that job, or maybe you ask those guys if they could, because Father Felix by then was the head of Caritas, so I said that's he would be a good guy, I think. Let's see if he can work for BOSCO. Right. And then I left. So he was not yet working. He was not yet working for us, but eventually he started. And that's true. He's also one of the constant faces that we have in BOSCO, and then I think it's also very important. And I think he's now his knowledge, his technical knowledge, and also it's not only the technical knowledge that you can learn on university schools or courses. It's like he knows the system in and out, I guess. Like no one else. And so I think his knowledge is really, really, really very valuable to maintain the system now. And That's true. I forgot about Alfred. Yeah. So this is um, one of the constants that I see. Like the people that are doing their work with a lot of commitment, with a lot of passion. I really always admire you guys because, like, like when I moved into my professional career at Accenture, I kind of pulled out and I just drop by every now and then to see how things are going, but I just don't spend as much time as and commitment and also free time.
Well,
as
start
you guys
up
do.
early career takes a lot of effort, and I appreciate your willingness to jump in now that Accenture has helped us so substantially.
Yeah, right.
It would be very nice for you to be able to help Accenture help us because you have some insight that it's hard to come by. 2 years hard won insight into people, the circumstances, challenges.
Right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that as well. Definitely.
Cool. Well, thanks for sitting down and chatting a little bit. I
Yeah.
appreciate it, Philip. I'm delighted that we ran into each other.
Yeah, it's a great coincidence.
Yeah, sure is.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah, you bet.
Thanks a lot.